Greetings, travelers, and welcome back to the Tales from Enchanted Forest podcast with your hosts, Fox and Sparrow.
Hello! Welcome to the spooky Enchanted Forest. We are your creepy, spooky companions, but very welcoming, like spooky, creepy in a fun kind of way.
Like in a Scooby-Doo kind of way and not like an actual scary movie kind of way with creepy dolls.
Exactly. Yeah, we're not here to actually make you scared, just like have that fun little, oh no, what's gonna happen type scared.
So if you haven't guessed from that intro, it's almost Halloween, and that means it's time for a spooky good story. If you are a true crime fanatic, then this is the perfect tale for you. But before we begin, I wanted to touch a little bit on the research behind the story. So for Halloween, we usually do a spooky story or a monster tale or something related to that, and this time I really wanted a story that was tied to a haunted place. When we think about haunted places, we think of haunted houses, haunted hotels, or haunted castles. And that's how I came across the legends of Pengersick Castle in Cornwall. There are tons of legends about this place. Like there's one where a ghost tries to poison his wife and she ends up switching their goblets, and the devil takes both of them. There are also stories of plague pits, the black dog myth, murdered monks. So the idea that there is a haunted place that has a lot of history tied to it is really interesting to me. How do you feel about haunted places, Sparrow?
I mean, I don't love spooky stuff. I think we've established that in previous years. I do remember as a kid that we did go to like a haunted house / castle thing. And I was just remember as a kid being super confused because I was like, okay, wait, this is haunted. It's sold, like, everyone's telling me it's haunted. There's ghosts here, but there's people living here. It was like one of those houses where they were like, half of it was meant for like tour groups, but then the other half, like a family just lived there. And I was like, why? I understand renting out for people to visit here, but why on earth are you still living here? Like, that just sounds insane to me. I don't love spooky stuff, and it's also weird because I don't totally believe like in ghosts and stuff like that, but also like I believe in spooky vibes, unnerving, and I'm really easily spooked. So I'm like, I don't need that.
Yeah, I feel like when in things like Supernatural or Buffy or Mystery Inc., any kind of like spooky thing, and I want to say Martin Mystery as well because I love Martin Mystery. It's very Canadian, but I feel like when they're in the spooky place and they're looking around and it's dark and doors are creaking and windows are shuddering, I feel like that to me is the most scary part before they actually see the ghost. Because once you see the ghost, and this is very, this is a very key part of like the suspense genre and the horror genre, is that if you don't see it, you can make it worse in your head. And I'm a kind of person that I don't sleep well in new places. So if I'm sleeping at someone's house or if I'm sleeping somewhere that I've never, like for the first time, I will make up noises. Like I'll be like, oh my God, did I hear something? No, I definitely heard something. I will gaslight myself into believing that there's something there until I'm so worked up that I'm like, okay, I have to just like put everything under the blanket and then the ghost can't get me. Even in my own house, I used to run to the washroom at night because I was so convinced that if I didn't race to the washroom and back into bed, I would get caught by something.
And do you know what is a good remedy for this?
What?
Getting a cat.
Yes.
Because if you get a cat, you can attribute any weird things, noises, whatever you hear at night to the cat. And then it's just like problem solved.
Yep. Anything weird at night, the cat. The biggest thing though is that with a dog will bark if something's wrong. My cat will not bark or make any noise. She'll just run and hide and protect herself. So I don't have to know if there's anything that's going to kill me. It'll just do it. I'm like, okay, great. I prefer that.
Exactly. And so that's my solution. If you're ever kind of concerned about like weird noises, just get a pet, and preferably cat, because I think they're great. And like you said, they don't usually announce that something's about to come kill you. They're just like, okay,
I'm out of here. Enjoy. And haunted places is how I came upon the stories of Pengersick Castle, like I said. So through my research, I found Robert Hunt's Popular Romances of the West of England, which tells 3 stories based on the castle. So how Pengersick became a sorcerer, the Lord of Pengerswick, an enchanter, and the Witch of Fraddam and Pengersick. I will say that there are so many alternative spellings to this. So there's Pengerswick, there's Pengersick, and then there's Pengersec. So I will be going based on the spelling of the text it's in. Although I will say, England, I remember the first time I was we were driving somewhere, because my husband's British. We were driving somewhere and he kept telling me we were going to Wickham. So I was like, okay, so I was looking for signs that said Wickham, because the only place I've seen Wickham before was in Pride and Prejudice. So I was like, oh, okay, it's probably spelled the same, Wickham. And he was like, oh, just keep an eye out for this sign. I was like, okay. And he was like, okay, do you see it? I'm like, no, I don't see any signs for Wickham. Where are we going? And he's like, oh, it's right there. And he points to a sign that says Wycombe. I'm like, you want to go to Wycombe? And he's like, no, that's Wickham. I'm like, in what world does Wycombe make Wickham? Like, I can see it once you start looking at it, you're like, okay, that makes sense. But when I first saw it, I was like, why are we heading towards Wycombe? Like, why are we going there? So, not that I have any problem with British towns and names, because Canada takes all of them, and so we have all these British, London, Ontario. So I don't have a problem with that. It's just sometimes it's hard for other people around the world to understand why you say things the way you do.
Yeah, English be weird like that.
Yes. So there are also the legends of Pengersec from William Bottrell's Traditions and Hearthside Stories of West Cornwall, which seem to be expanded versions of Hunt's tales. They take some of the key elements, but they do have a lot of extra stuff. And a lot of what we're going to talk about does come from these later stories, just because they're so substantial. So, Sparrow and travelers, I hope you are ready for part 1 of 2, about a tale of pirates, murder, witches, vengeful spirits, wizards, and war. It will probably leave you dying for more. To set our spooky scene, we need to head to our haunted Pengersick Castle on the Cornish coast. The lords of this place were all soldiers who rarely spent time at home, and when there was no war to fight nearby, they went looking for one. The lord of our story is one such man. When he was young, he set off to the east looking for a fight. Now, we don't know what the east means. It just says that he goes to this eastern country to fight the pagans or to fight for the pagans. We're not quite sure. There, he found this beautiful princess and really wanted to bring her home with him. But the problem was that she was already engaged to someone else. She was also the only daughter to an old king, so whomever married her would essentially be handed a kingdom on a golden platter. For all his faults, Pengersick didn't really care about the kingdom, but he did want the princess, and so he found ways to sneak into her rooms at night. Surprise, surprise, 9 months later, the princess has a baby in secret that they have to get rid of because it would have been a massive scandal.
Mm-hmm.
And conveniently, of course, soon after, Pengersick has to leave to go home, but he does promise the princess that he would wait for her for 7 years, and she believes him. She takes off her ring and breaks it in half and gives him half of it as a symbol of their union and their vows to each other. I want you to take one big guess as to what happens when Pengersick gets home. Does he A, wait the 7 years before he goes and finds his love?
Mm-hmm.
Or B, forget about her almost immediately?
Well, the romantic part of me wants to say he waited, but my pragmatic part of me...
This is not that kind of story.
It doesn't feel like that's going to be this kind of story. So I'm going to say C, something different. Because I don't want it to be B, but I don't think it's going to be A.
Ooh, okay. I guess a disclaimer then. If you are looking for a nice love story, this is not it.
Ooh.
And if you're looking for someone to root for, this is not that kind of story either. I mean, maybe towards the end, but as my husband said when I was retelling the story to him first, he was like, am I supposed to be rooting for anyone? And I said, absolutely not.
There are no heroes in this story.
So, there are heroes, but we'll meet them later, like 20 years or so.
Okay. I look forward to it.
So it was actually option B. Pengersick gets home and he all but forgets about the princess and ends up marrying a nice Cornish lady. However, again, after a year, she still has not had any pregnancies, and Pengersick is getting kind of bored at home. Remember, this is the same man who set off to go battle literally anyone for any cause. And so he decides he's going to head back east. By the time he returns, the princess is now the queen. And she welcomes Pengersick back because she has no clue that he's married, and he does end up joining her fight against her former fiancé. Now, the reason why they're having this big fight is because she didn't end up marrying him, obviously because she's very loyal and in love with Pengersick, but the ex-fiancé still wanted the kingdom, and after her father's death, it became a massive kind of civil war-style fight. During these battles, the queen ends up giving Pengersick her father's enchanted sword. And this sword has kind of a history and legends around it, being that anyone who possesses it will never lose a fight against their enemies or will always be successful in battle. And so she gives it to him. But despite all these legends, little did she know that Pengersick was a little rat, and as soon as the tide of war changed, he retreated on his ships and sailed home without a backwards glance to make sure she survived. And during that final battle that devastated the queen and her soldiers, she didn't realize that Pengersick had just left. She thought that maybe he was forced to leave, or that he thought something else had happened. Like, she was making up excuses in her head of, oh, maybe this happened and he left, or oh, maybe this happened and he left.
Mm-hmm.
And so she decides she's going to take one of her last vessels and a faithful crew to go to his homeland and basically go see her lover now that she lost her kingdom.
I mean, fair.
It is the logical thing. You're like, oh, I've lost everything. I'm going to go to the house of my lover, and then we can be happy there because at least we have some place to go.
Yeah, for sure.
And as the readers, we know how this is going to end because obviously he has the wife at home. And to make matters worse, when he returns home, he doesn't just forget about the queen, and not just because, he's that kind of man, but it's because his wife now has a little baby boy.
Oh.
And so with his heir and his wife and his kingdom and, a new sense of gratitude for not fighting, he doesn't really care much for what's happening in the east or for adventure, and he soon settles into his castle. His life was going great until one night there's a knock on his gates, and his servants run up to tell him that there is a strange lady at the door.
Why is it that no one in these stories ever thinks that there might be consequences for their actions or that their past might come back to haunt them? Like, oh my goodness. Like, I always worry if, someone I wronged, even by accident, comes back later. Like, remember that rude thing you said to me? I've been holding on to that. I'm coming for you. Like, oh my goodness.
I think the only way to justify it is that Pengersick is a man with power in England during a time when he can just travel east, do what he wants, and come back with no consequences. So it's kind of fair for him to be like, oh, maybe she just died in the war. That would probably be the best option for him anyway. So upon hearing about the fact there was a strange lady knocking on his gate, Pengersick knew exactly who it could be. Disgusted and afraid of being found out, he runs down to meet her at the gates, barely notices that she's holding on to a literal baby, and just grabs her by the elbow to steer her away from the door or the sight so that no one can see them. He demands to know what she was doing there, and he calls her crazy to come to his house where his wife and kid were. And then he says, what if someone sees us?
My goodness.
He's, of course, the crazy one, because the queen had no way of knowing that the man who promised her everything was actually married. That was a little detail he forgot to mention when he was sleeping with her and when she gave him her father's sword.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She quickly realizes that the man she loved and thought that he was just a fabrication. And so she swears at him and asks him how he could be so cruel to a woman and child he made sacred vows to, because it turns out that baby is his. And she was pregnant when he abandoned her at war, and she had given birth at sea to a little boy on the way to Cornwall.
My goodness.
And she does ask him, like, how could you leave me now when I have nobody and nothing? Like, you couldn't have left me alone when I had my father and my kingdom, but you had to come back and basically ruin everything and then leave me when I have nothing. Are you serious?
Oof.
To a normal person who'd be listening, they might, feel a bit of shame, maybe feel a little embarrassed, a sense of duty. But Pengersick was not really listening to her. He was too busy looking around, making sure no one could overhear them. Because, the sight of the Lord next to this strange, crazy woman with a baby in her arms would stir up a lot of scandal for him, and he was worried of it reaching his wife. So he starts, steering her over towards the cliffs as they continue arguing, and he does threaten to drown her if she doesn't leave right then and there. And the queen keeps arguing with him until finally, raising her hand as if to curse him, she cries out that his evil would be met with bad luck throughout his life, and then he would have a sorrowful end. Now, you can only imagine how a man like Pengersick is going to take this kind of curse or insult. And so what does he do? Well, if you guessed, he pushes her over the edge of the cliff and watches as she plummets into the deep water below with the baby still held tightly to her chest. You would win.
Oh my goodness.
Because that's exactly what he does. He pushes her off the cliff.
That's like the most villain thing you could do. Stand at the edge of the cliff and just push a woman and a baby off the cliff. Was there lightning in the background in that moment?
Yeah, and I can only imagine how different this would be if his wife had not produced an heir while he was away. I feel like he would have maybe had a different attitude.
You think?
Towards the whole situation, because back then lords and their sons, it was a weird thing. So I feel like maybe this would have been different had he not already had a son. But who knows? Racism is also a thing, and maybe he was like, I don't really want a kid with someone from the Far East, whatever that means, wherever the Far East means.
Yeah.
But yeah, so.
And the wife is none the wiser to all this.
No, she's still inside the castle somewhere, probably with her own son. And Pengersick is like looking around, making sure no one sees them, that there's no witnesses, and then he just hurries home. Doesn't say a word to anybody about what just happened.
My goodness, you get cursed. You gotta tell people if you've been cursed. That feels like that is just like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like a good analogy, but it just feels like something you should at least let people know. Like, look, probably not real, but the woman I just murdered did curse me before she died, so we might be cursed now. You got to give people the heads up.
Well, no one really saw this, so there's no one that he doesn't think he's going to be held accountable for this.
Oh no.
But unlucky for him, dead bodies have a really bad tendency of showing up and floating. And not long after, the queen's lifeless body drifts along the waves and is found by the captain and crew of her ship. Now, the captain of her ship was a really good man, and he had a really bad feeling about Pengersick when they first arrived. And the entire crew had kind of begged the queen to let them come with her to the castle. But she was so sure that Pengersick would be glad to see her, so that she went alone.
Mm-hmm.
And when they see her in the waves, her dead body, they obviously bring her on board. And the captain goes to, separate her from the baby so they can, put them in separate places. And we assume the baby is dead, but when he picks up this baby, it's alive and sleeping. And it had been sleeping this entire time. And of course, the captain has to think quite quickly because obviously someone has just murdered the queen. Her baby manages to be alive, which is probably, the heir to the kingdom, if the kingdom isn't still in turmoil. And so he doesn't really want to stay in a land with this suspicious, murderous lord.
Mm-hmm.
And so he decides they're going to sail right back home and he's going to raise the baby himself. And so they set sail and they go off.
Awesome. I love that twist. I was fully expecting for that baby to be also dead.
Well, I was also like, how are you going to survive? But we're going to suspend the belief that when she drowned, maybe she held the baby up over the water or something.
Yeah, somehow her love protected the baby, who hopefully now becomes like a super cool king pirate captain, like, dude. Let's just hope.
Yeah, comes back and gives off some vengeance. But we'll see. So we've had murder.
Yeah.
We have this little twist that the son is alive.
Mm-hmm.
Which in legends and stories, oftentimes the baby you try and kill is the one that stays alive, like Atalanta. Even Paris from the Trojan War stories, you know, he was supposed to be killed. He managed to stay alive. Look at what destruction he caused.
Yeah.
But anyway, Pengersick the next day is just continuing his normal routine. He has a hunt planned, and so he's out hunting wolves with his men and dogs, when all of a sudden it starts pouring rain. It's a sudden freak storm. And at this point, Pengersick is in a full gallop on Tregonning Hill. He's lost in the rain and the dark, and his horse is freaking out. He can't really see anything. And then all of a sudden, there's a flash of lightning. And when the sky is illuminated, he sees an entire horde of wild animals just racing towards him. And in the front is this strange white hare with eyes like coals of fire. And these animals are running towards him. And obviously his horse is losing its mind. It rears back and it drops him onto his back. He's sprawled there. He's injured. He's alone. Rain is just pounding onto him. And all he can think about is this hare with the red eyes. He doesn't know how, but he has this feeling that there's something wrong with his hare. And for the first time, probably all day, he starts thinking about, you know, the woman he murdered the night before. And so he's lying there and he's thinking about this hare and he's thinking about the spirit of the woman he murdered, and he's not able to move. He's had some kind of spinal injury when he fell, and he's just cold and alone all throughout the night. The next day, when his men find him, he's more dead than alive on that hill. When he does wake up in the castle, he realizes that his enchanted sword, which was strapped to him, is now missing. And this is the one that was gifted to him by the dead queen. Obviously, he took this as a big sign. He's like, that hare was trying to kill me. It took my sword. It must be the dead queen.
It's always so unnerving when a herbivore is your enemy. Like, there's something just super unnerving because it's like your animal instincts should not be to kill me. And yet here you are staring me down. Like, anytime you present to me a herbivore as the ultimate villain, it's very freaky.
Yeah, and I think it's just because like herbivores also get so big. Mm-hmm. Like if you told me that an elephant would try and kill me, I would 100% believe you. If I didn't know it was a herbivore, right? I'd be like, yeah, that thing looks like it could kill me. But I like this idea of this hare, like this small creature that has such an impact on him that he's so scared of it all night.
And hares kind of look freaky. They kind of look like they got their own thing going on, which is so crazy because bunnies, adorable. Hares, please stay away from me.
Yeah, there are some animals where like they look very close to their siblings. You know, like a nice house cat. You're like, wow, I could love that. And then you see a tiger, you're like, absolutely not. Very scary.
Yes.
Still might pet, but you know, a danger pet.
Yes.
Anyway, so he becomes, from then on, Pengersick becomes this coward who's afraid to leave his own castle. He just keeps seeing this hare in his dreams. He keeps thinking it's going to attack him. And when he finally does, he brings a priest with him for protection because he keeps thinking, okay, if it's a spirit of the dead lady, a priest can get rid of it. Mm-hmm. So the first time he left the castle, the white hare appeared and it took on the form of the dead queen. The priest obviously tried to, pray over it, make her go away. And she just stood there in spirit form and she insulted them and she told them that neither they nor their gods had power over her. And she would stay for as long as she liked, haunting this man. But she would leave when her son came to the Lord's estate. And until then, no, she was staying. And she did this for years. Pengersick remained shut up in his castle because he was so afraid of what her ghost would do to him. During this time, his wife had died while their son was still young, and the boy was raised mainly by servants and the miller's wife who nursed him along with her own son, Uter, who ended up becoming the boy's best friend. And the boy, whose name is Merrick, soon grew up into a fine young man and was 20 when Pengersick finally started thinking about, his future and what was going to happen next. Now, this is 20 years later. So at this point, the hare is still around, still haunting this man. But Pengersick is a little bit less afraid, so he still does try and, travel out now and then with the priest next to him. And And so there's one place where Pengersick likes to go, and this is the castle of Godolphin. And this is because he really wants his son to marry the daughter there. In the version of the story we're telling now, she's only about 2 years older than his son, but in some other versions, she's really old. But she's also really rich. However, that's not the reason why Merrick refused to even think about an engagement with her. It was because this lady was close friends with the witch of Fraddam and her niece Venna. Venna was this beautiful girl who wasn't really rich, but she was, really nice to look at and often helped in her aunt's witchcraft and the lady's poisons. And of course, oftentimes when we hear about women being witches, it's often, slander. But in this case, Merrick was right. The lady was known for making poisons, but she was also a master manipulator. She would go to church every Sunday and talk about how all of the people were slandering her and using it to ruin her reputation. And of course, a lot of the simple people did think that she was just a good God-fearing woman and a victim. And even the ones who didn't believe her didn't really care because they thought they could use it to their own advantage somehow. So basically, it's okay to be a witch if you have money. And so Merrick, the son, had no interest in her. He was really more into his sports and his hunting and his fishing and his best friend. He didn't really care about her at all. And as much as she wanted him for his good looks and his youth, she was also really interested in his money and the stuff that he will inherit when his father dies. And Pengersick really wanted her money as well. So as time passed, Pengersick continued meeting her, and this was first as a wingman for his son. But later on, he was like, you know what? I could get remarried. I am also single.
Oh, no.
And so in a really gross turn of fate, eventually, he's the one who ended up marrying the lady. And this was only because he promised her that their children would inherit everything and his son would get nothing. If they were to have children, of course.
Oh my goodness. Can you imagine being the son, being like, wow, congrats, I heard your dad's getting married. Like, how did they meet? It's like, oh, he was trying to set me up with her. Oh, but now he's married? Yes. Is that weird? Yes.
Yeah, blind date got wrong.
My goodness, this poor dude. But also, honestly, he's like, won't inherit anything. I would want to peace out if that was happening. I'd be like, you know what? Sure, I will go figure it out on my own.
Like, I'm gone. Bye.
I would be trying to get out of that house ASAP.
If this is the situation for all the lords of Pengersick, I can see why they like to go fight in any war they can. Be like, you know what? I need to go and fight. Oh, where are you going to go fight? Anywhere that's not here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Now, this lady, so she's a witch, obviously, and she was really into the money, but she's also really into the son. And marriage to an old man was nothing like she wanted. And so soon she grew very tired and very bored with him. And things were even worse because now she had Merrick in close quarters with him. And so she could compare him to her husband constantly. And she could look at this fine young man who was constantly doing all these different sports and was really fit. And she was constantly, lusting after him and being like, well, I'm married to this old man and this is what his son looks like. And he didn't want me. So what does she do? She shuts herself in her apartment and calls the witch of Fraddam for help. When the witch arrives, the woman explains that she really wanted her stepson to fall in love with her. Ethics aside, the witch does give her a recipe for a love potion, and then she leaves. The lady ordered Venna, so the witch's niece, to make the potion and to sneak it into Merrick's drink that night. And this was a mistake because the witch forgot to mention that the one who prepared and served the drink would be the subject of the love potion. So that night, poor Merrick looked up at Venna after she had poured him a drink, and he was overcome by love. And what does he do? He presses her to drink from his glass to sweeten it with her lips, which was a custom of the time, to say to a woman, like, take a sip from my drink, it'll make it sweeter. And she's a little bit unable to refuse because it would raise a lot of suspicion if she protested too much about, drinking from his cup. Interestingly enough, in Hunt's version, Venna has another name, and she was actually in love with Merrick. So she was actively trying to get him to fall in love with her as well. So this could have been, not an accident, but done on purpose. Either way, from where she was sitting, the lady was raging. She saw the look Merrick was giving her lady, and they snuck out. And nobody really noticed, but she was watching them, and she saw her stepson and her lady's maid just sneak out of the hall.
Wait, hold on. Quick question.
Yeah.
If she took a drink of the potion that was a love potion but it's supposed to fall in love with the person who made it, did that mean she fell in love with herself because she had to drink her own potion?
So I did think about this. It does say the person who prepared and served the drink, so I do think it might have been because he served it to her, that might have fulfilled that part of the spell. But again, in Hunt's version, she knew what she was doing. She was making the spell on purpose. So it might have been that, she didn't actually drink from it, or she's like, oh no, I'm also in love. Oh, how did that happen?
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
I was thinking about it and needed thoughts.
That's okay. I did read it again because I was like, I did think at first, I'm like, if she drank a love potion that was supposed to make the person fall in love with the person who made the love potion, that would be herself. Like Narcissus.
Maybe it only affects the first person to drink it, and then it loses effect.
Maybe. And so she was just like, but it could have been, the fact that he served it to her could have also been part of the, I don't know.
Yeah.
But the main point here is that when the stepmom finally reaches to the part of the beach where the two are, they are in an amorous embrace. Let's just say. And so all the stepmom can think about is that it should have been her with her stepson on that beach, which sounds crazy.
Yeah.
But that's what she's thinking. She's like, that love potion was supposed to make him fall in love with me.
Hey, make your own love potion.
Yeah. So then she decides, if I can't have him, no one can.
Ugh.
And so the next morning, the lady went to go see her old husband, and she very casually told him that she was returning to her father's castle. Now, the official reason she gave was that she just wanted some fresh air. But with many, many, many hints, she insinuated that the real reason was that she was very uncomfortable with her stepson and his inappropriate affection for her. She pretended to be embarrassed. She pretended to be shy. And this was perfect for riling up her husband's jealousy. So basically, she made it seem like her stepson was the one that was coming on to her. And so Pengersick is not a smart man. And he starts swearing and he starts raving. And, he assumes that his son had actually done this. And he assures his wife that when she returns, that young man would be far, far, far from their halls, and they would never have to see him again. Which, an interesting take for your own son and your only heir, given that your second wife doesn't have any kids yet. So, the lady, she fakes her gratitude, and then she returns to her own chambers, and she summons Venna to her. As soon as Venna steps into this room, she realizes it's a trap. The lady physically shoves her into a corner, pins her with a knife to her chest, and pushes a vial of poison against her lips. And the lady threatens to cut Venna's heart out that instant unless the girl voluntarily drank the poison. Now remember, none of this is Venna's fault. She was literally following instructions. And she points this out. She says, I just made the potion the way my aunt told me to. Like, at no point did she say that you had to be the one to make it and serve it. And she does promise that she would still help the lady seduce her stepson if only, she would put the knife away and think logically for a second. Surprisingly, the lady actually does this. And instead of focusing on killing Venna, they now focus on trying to figure out a way to kill the Lord. Because, again, the consequences of her actions after her performance that morning, she was very sure that now the Lord would banish his son, and then she would never get a chance to seduce him. Now, in Hunt's version, remember the one where Venna actually likes the Lord's son, the lady comes up with various poisons and potions for her stepson, but Venna always has counterspells to them. So without knowing, she's actively trying to use the spells and stuff to make the stepson like her instead of her mistress. That's in Hunt's version.
I also like how this whole time there's also the lady haunting the castle and the house. Like, just in the middle of this, she's walking in the hallway and, like, there's just a ghost screaming at her and she's like, yeah. But the sun.
Yeah. The thing is, if she's a witch, you know, I would have assumed that the Lord would have said at some point, like, hey, I have this kind of hairy problem. Do you think you could help me out since people say you're a witch? At any point, she could have also been like, hey, I noticed this white hair is following you as a spirit. I'm a witch. Let me, like, figure this out for you.
Yeah.
No, she doesn't really care. She's like, I don't really care about the side plot you have going on. I'm focused on trying to sleep with my stepson. Could you, you know, keep your ghost hauntings to yourself, please?
Thank you.
But yeah, so I find that really funny as well, that there's this whole other, like, vengeful spirit still around. Yeah. And no one's doing anything about it, including the Lord's actual witch wife. But yeah, so the two witches are discussing all the ways to poison the Lord, but what they don't know is that someone is listening to them. The plot thickens. So for some context, Pengersick Castle is a very, very old castle. It's a medieval castle. And they often have lots of hidden passages for quick getaways. There are also lots of areas that have been used by servants to get quickly from one area to another. And the Lord's steward had started using the passages to eavesdrop on the lady when they first got married, because he and the priest believed that she was really up to no good and was possibly actually a witch. Now, they had missed a lot of the previous scheming, but this time they were in the right place at the right time, and they overheard Venna and the lady talking about poisoning the Lord. So that night, without anyone noticing, the steward pretended to spill something on the lady to distract her in, like, the very classic, you know, comedy movie thing where, like, you spill something on someone and go, oh my God, I'm so sorry, while someone else, you know, steals something. So he pretends to spill something on the lady, and while he distracted her by pretending to clean it up, they swapped the drinks of the lady and the Lord, assuming that the lady had, you know, poisoned the Lord's tankard. Mm-hmm. And they watched as she drank from the cup. Nothing happened to her, so they were like, oh, okay, maybe she didn't actually poison him. Mm-hmm. What they didn't know is that the lady had spent her entire life taking small doses of poison to prevent this exact situation. And so while the dose of poison would have been fatal for the Lord, it did absolutely nothing to her, unfortunately. They weren't sure if she didn't poison the cup, if they heard wrong, if it was supposed to be a different date, but the steward and the priest knew that they had to share this information with someone. So they go to Merrick and they tell him everything they overheard, including the fact that his stepmom was really insanely into him and was really trying to seduce him, so he should really watch out for that. Merrick revealed that he did know that she was a witch and that she had these weird intentions towards him, but they had nothing to fear because he was repulsed by her and would never do anything with her. Unfortunately, later that day, Merrick found himself alone in a room with the lady, and she kept making these suggestive comments and giggling and coming on to him, and this irritated him like crazy. He snapped and insulted her, unable to keep a word of it to himself any longer. So he went off, and she ended up leaving the room without saying a word. Instead, she went straight to her husband, and she made up an incredible lie. She lied and said that she had just escaped from her stepson's advances and she had to defend her honor with a dagger, and that, you know, this was too far. He'd gone too far with her. And this time, the Lord was instantly provoked. He was like, okay, I'm going to get rid of my son. He's basically tried to assault you. Like, I need to get rid of him. Don't worry about it. Merrick doesn't know any of this is happening. He's feeling quite good about, you know, telling the lady off. And he's just living his life. That night, him and his friend are, you know, fishing, and they happen to see a vessel struggling with the waves. And so they take their boat out and they happen across this drowning sailor. They pulled the man from the waves, and they take him back to the castle. They put him by the fire. They do take off his wet clothes, and then they lay him in the bed. And then they lay next to him in the bed to help warm him up. Which, you know, in a fantasy novel where, like, it's the two main characters doing it to each other is fine. But in this case, a little bit weird.
Yeah, very weird.
So the next day, the sailor wakes up to find himself naked and sandwiched between two strange men.
Oh my goodness.
And he's about to get up when, thankfully, Merrick wakes up first and explains everything. And so the seaman, who's like, okay, why are we all in bed? Okay, you know what? You saved my life. No further questions. He tells them that his name is Arleth and he's from the east and he had fallen off a ship. He wasn't quite sure how, everything's a bit blurry, but he had fallen off the ship and he was really thankful for them for saving him. But he really wanted to go and find his father, the captain of the ship, because he was worried that his dad thought that he had drowned. And so obviously the sooner that he can go tell his father that he's alive, the better. So the three men have a really quick breakfast, and Uther, the friend, notices that Arleth and Merrick look very similar. He's like, oh, you two could really pass for brothers. Now, no one really dissects this information. They just go, okay, and they continue on. On the way to the market, they decide to have a little hunt. And as expected, the seaman who had nearly died the night before was not great at this activity. He couldn't control his hunting horse very well, and it raced ahead of the others while chasing a white doe. And he soon found himself alone on Tregonning Hill. When his horse finally stops, he stumbles off the horse, but as soon as his feet touch the ground, lightning strikes a rock near him, and he hears a voice say, "Fear not, my beloved son, seize thy forefather's sword and win thy kingdom." Looking around, he sees a beautiful white hair and a sword with sparkling jewels on the hilt. As he goes to pick up the sword, he notices the other two men are approaching, and when Merrick sees this legendary weapon, he just says that he believes that Alrith is destined to do great things. So he's not jealous at all. He's not like, oh, what's that? Like, there's no questions asked. He's just like, wow, that's a great sword. You must be, you're going to do great things.
Gosh, please tell me this story ends with these two brothers just being so chill with each other.
So, they do promise to see each other for dinner that evening, and then Alrith rides off to go find his father. When he arrives at his ship, the old captain was very happy to see his son, who he had genuinely thought had died the night before.
Aww.
Everyone on the ship had been really worried the young man had drowned or been washed ashore somewhere very far away. And so the captain is hugging his son when he notices the sword on his belt. Then the captain goes very grim and very silent. You might be thinking, oh, no way, this random drowning seaman is the Lord's son that was saved by a captain 20 years ago after his mother was murdered. Well, all the clues so far have been pointing to yes. And the captain finally tells Alrith the truth about his heritage. He tells him that his mother had been murdered by his father, the Lord Pengersec, and what was more, he told him that Alrith had every right to head back to the Eastern lands and claim his mother's domains. Especially because after the queen had died, there'd been a big civil war, and it's continued on to this day because no one has been able to successfully claim the throne since the sword has disappeared. And the captain does say, like, people are kind of tired of fighting. If you arrived, the legendary prince of some, the prince that was not even known to be alive because no one knew the queen had been pregnant at the time. If you arrive with your heritage and the magic sword, people would maybe rally around you. Then there's a moment while Alrith is, letting this all sink in where the captain says, I really hate to interrupt, but something happened while we thought you were dead. And he tells his son how Lord Pengersec had strode on board, tossed a pouch of gold at the captain, and told him that he wanted to hire the ship to kidnap his son. At the time, the captain was so, he was caught up in his grief. He thought he had lost his adopted son. And he was so, angry at seeing this man who had killed his queen earlier, 20 years earlier, on his ship, that he simply sent the Lord away and threatened to throw him overboard if he, stayed on the boat a second longer. However, now that the captain has had time to think about it, he realized that there's another ship nearby that was actually known for piracy and for selling off young people in Barbary. And so he's been thinking this entire time, but now that he sees his son, he's relieved. He's like, oh my God, I think the Lord would have gone to that ship next and hire the pirates to kidnap his son and potentially kill him, sell him, send him off, who knows. So as it turns out, the Lord did in fact go to the pirate ship and pay them to kidnap his son. So Arluth and the captain decide to grab their weapons and basically wait to see where the pirates go, because Arluth knew that the other two men were going to be coming to visit him for dinner, and so that might be when the pirates try and kidnap them. And this guy seems very sweet. He wanted his first act with his new enchanted sword to be protecting his brother, his half-brother.
And it's gonna go well. I just feel it. This is a haunted story, but it's gonna go well.
So that night, while Merrick and his friend were on their way to Arluth's boat for dinner, they were attacked by the pirates, and being outnumbered, they were quickly put in chains. Before they could be taken anywhere, though, the seaman from that morning jumped out of the dark and cut the pirates to pieces. And if that wasn't enough, he also went to the pirate ship and proceeded to hang the rest of the crew and take that ship and all its treasure as his own.
Ooh.
So Arluth has had a wild day.
Yeah.
In the past 24 hours, he's found out he's a prince. His father murdered his mother. His mother is a vengeful spirit that's a hare. He has a legendary sword that can help him take over his mother's kingdom. His half-brother was almost sold into human trafficking. And he's won a pirate ship full of treasure.
Mm-hmm.
And keep in mind, all of this after waking up naked in bed with two strange men after nearly drowning.
What did you do with your last 24 hours?
None of this. Afterwards, he does tell Merrick, like, listen, if your father's the one who ordered this, you should come with us. You should sail with us to the east. And Merrick is in a tough spot. He doesn't really want to leave his lands with a stranger and be, penniless in a different place. Even though Arluth did promise to care for him and share everything down to his last silver coin, Merrick is like, I have no idea who you are. Like, thank you so much, but I don't really trust you. Like, who are you? This, of course, causes Arluth to then tell the whole story again to Merrick. And now, when the two men have dinner with the captain and everything's out in the open, Merrick agrees to sail off into the sunset with his half-brother.
Really?
Yes, that's actually part of the story. So he realizes, at first he's a little bit like, I don't really know you. I don't really go anywhere where I don't have any money or anything to, to do. What am I supposed to go to the Far East and do what? But obviously now that he knows his brother might be the king of that place, he's like, you know what? I trust you. I'm going to go with you.
Or you could stick around with the creepy witch,
Yeah, or you could stick around with the creepy witch and your father who wants to kill you. Definitely your choice. So we go back to Pengersick and his steward, the one who eavesdropped using the tunnels. The steward had seen the Lord go to two different ships and hadn't seen the son all day, so he suspected something had happened to the young Lord. That morning, after noticing that both ships had gone, he confronted the Lord and his wife, and he basically accused the lady of conspiring to remove the son from the equation after she tried to sleep with him.
Yes.
Now, at this point, the Lord doesn't fully trust the steward, but the steward says, call the niece, call the witch's lady's maid, ask her to come. And so Venna was called in, and she turned on the lady so fast that it gave everyone whiplash.
Let's go.
And I guess that's what happens when you threaten to carve someone's heart out that they're not entirely loyal to anymore. And she reveals everything, and the Lord finally understands that he was played like a fool.
Mm-hmm.
He threw both women into the dungeon and rushes over to the market to see if he could find a ship to chase the pirate ship. But there was nothing suitable, and so he returns home around nightfall. He was so distracted that he does not notice a white hare jump out in front of his horse. The horse was so spooked that it ran down the shore and, to escape the hare that was chasing it, rode into the sea. Neither the horse nor the rider were ever seen again. This is kind of a fitting end to a pathetic man who drowned a woman and her baby in cold blood, that he would die after thinking that he had just ruined his son's life, ruined his entire life, basically, for this lady that didn't even like him. And the drowning is very fitting.
Yeah.
In our headcanon, the horse survives.
Okay.
Yeah, in our headcanon, the horse just, let him die. The lady who was in the dungeon was eventually rescued by her father's people, but she had become covered in scales like a serpent.
Ooh.
It was supposed that this was the effects of the poison that she had tried to kill the Lord with, but it could have also been the doing of a vengeful Venna, who mysteriously disappeared from the dungeons and turned up at her aunt's house.
Ooh.
So, the people of Pengersick were left with no lord, no lady, and no heir. The servants, being loyal to the young lord, they helped try to raise as much money as possible and save and take care of everything so that they could pay his ransom, and then hopefully everything would be fine when he returns. And that brings us to the end of part 1. The first part of the tale covered the majority of Bottrell's tale. In Hunt's tale, the stories are much shorter, and the story kind of unfolds without the queen from the far east or her son. Instead, the young lord managed to escape the pirates on his own, and he escapes to foreign lands while his father does live on, while slowly being poisoned by the lady. It's only on the lord's deathbed that he realizes that he's being poisoned because Venna tells him. And then eventually, the young lord returns home with the princess as his wife, and he's now become like this wizard. We'll get into that in part 2. But the stepmother had been hiding away in her tower for years because she had grown scales from all the poisons that she had been feeding her husband. And then upon seeing the young lord return, she kind of throws herself into the water. So that's all part 1. Part 2 is going to be more about when Merrick returns as a sorcerer and kind of his battles with the witches, and how he takes care of the land afterwards.
Ooh, I do love it when a henchman turns on the villain. Like, it's a really fun moment, just seeing Venna be like, "Yeah, I don't care anymore. I'm gonna rat you out."
Like, you've mistreated me for so long. I'm tired of it.
Yeah, for reals. I am on strike. I want a raise.
For some reason, it reminds me of The Incredibles.
Yes.
And how the entire plot of the first movie is kind of like the sidekick's revenge.
Yeah, for sure.
Like going after the heroes.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And that's just all part 1. This was a crazy part 1, and I loved it. I'm here for it.
Yes.
We had witches, we had lords, we had pirates, we had dramatic deaths, we had villains. Oh my goodness. The only thing we were missing was a hero.
I feel like we're going to get the hero. Like, once Merrick and Alrith become more of their own characters, I feel like then they'll become heroes. Yeah, Merrick is great, but he's more, like, he's mainly just doing sports. Like, that's mainly what he's doing.
He's very passive.
And hanging out with his friend.
Yeah.
So far, our only real hero is the 24-hour cycle of Alrith becoming a hero.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
Very quickly becoming the chosen one by the sword. Which we're here for.
Yeah.
We're here for this. And the captain. Let's be real. The captain is the true hero of the story. Saving the baby, raising him to be a good man, and then laying it all out for Merrick.
So, dear travelers, we will return with part 2 shortly. We'll learn of Merrick's travels to the far east, his descent into wizardry, and his beautiful wife, as well as dealing with the vengeful witch of Fraddam. Until then, you can find our show notes and blog posts on everything Enchanted on our website, talesfromenchantforest.com, or on most social media sites as @FromEnchanted or @TalesFromEnchantForest. We are on Bluesky and Instagram and most other sites. However, if you are old school like Sparrow, then you can also send us an email at talesfromenchantforest@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your spooky tales, tricks, local hauntings, or what you think will happen in part 2. So be sure to find us and drop us a comment.
And remember, there's always a place for you in the Enchanted Forest.